The money kept rolling in from every side. Eva's pretty hands reach out and they reach wide. Now you may feel it should have been a voluntary cause, but that's not the point, my friends. When the money keeps rolling in, you don't ask how. Think of all the people guaranteed a good time now.
Don't worry, if you're not a fan of the 1996 version of Tim Rice's and Andrew Lloyd Webber's Evita, I can probably only do like 5 more parody tracks of that before I have to move on. And don't worry, I think Frasier might be next. Unlike Phil, I'm a man of culture, but like Phil, we're both mature adults with business degrees. Based on every decision Phil's ever made, though, I'm starting to suspect our curriculums were a little bit different. One of the concepts we learned about is called going concern, or a company's ability to make enough money to stay afloat or avoid bankruptcy. Of course, we're going to press X to gout here, right? Wrong. I'm a real mawab. So here, we're going to press X to qualify the opinion. I can already imagine Phil's head spinning. This is a whole nother rainy day fun situation. How can something with the word concern in it be good? How can something with the word qualified in it be bad? Phil, this is what you went to business school for. You should know all of this already, and I know you don't. If you did, you would not be in the position that you are. Fortunately for Phil, I believe that Phil steals enough money from the dents that if he just ran his business properly, he could not only be a degenerate gambler, but he could also take his wife on a honeymoon finally. I plan to make this an ongoing series, no pun intended, where in each video I break down an aspect of Phil's business that is just completely broken and show him how to fix it. He obviously doesn't take any advice if it's related to digital documents such as PDF files or relevant business advice, so I don't expect him to listen, but I'm still going to throw it out. So, coming up on today's episode of A Going Concern.
The full skinny. Chargebacks against my PayPal account.
Chargebacks? Against your PayPal account? You don't say. Don't worry, Phil, this is going to be an easy fix. I would say if I were in your shoes, but I don't think you really wear shoes because you never leave the snort fort. So what I would do, full disclosure, I don't really use PayPal because I have great credit, so I just continue to use my credit cards and rack up points and pay them off in full, but that's an episode for another day. So first thing I would do is familiarize myself with the PayPal chargeback policy. Normally, I'd rely upon my chat to give me this information, but since this is on-demand content, I just use Google behind the scenes. Alright, so a buyer of Phil's shit has 180 days to do a chargeback. So, if we wanted to completely eliminate risk, we would just leave every tip in there for 180 days. But this is the real world, you can't eliminate risk, you gotta go outside sometimes. So instead of eliminating risk, the best option here would really be to just reduce the risk. So some sort of analysis is necessary. And I'm going to start this analysis off by saying there's no one way to do this. I'm of the opinion that just, getting in there and looking at the data is, the key to a good analysis. It might not be the specific ratios or the methodology, just the fact that you're getting in there like a real business owner and understanding your numbers. I just really think that's the important part. So here's an example data set that I put together so we could all follow along. In the upper right are the formulas I use to calculate a random tip amount for each day. This example just puts one tip each day, but it really doesn't matter based on its methodology. And finally, I use that last formula to randomly select certain tips to be a chargeback for this example. Now that we have some data, we'll use an average formula to calculate our average tip balance. We'll use an average if to calculate our average chargeback. This will only include chargebacks in the average. I use the count function to count the total amount of tips. It just happens to be 365 because that was the amount of days in the data set that I use, and there's only one tip per day. Assuming multiple tip per days, this would be a lot higher, and it would also vary based on the time frame, of course. Finally, I used the count A formula. This was needed because the count formula only takes into account numbers, and the chargeback was actually indicated by a CB, so it allows those to be counted properly. With all of that information, we can then easily calculate our chargeback percentage. Since our most recent tip was on 12/31/23, and we know that PayPal has a chargeback length of 180 days, for this tip total, we'll want to consider all tips from 7/4/23 to 12/31. To calculate our averages above, we used a whole year's worth of data, which is good for the historical look back, but for the purpose of calculating the total balance of tips that the escrow needs to be calculated for, we're only going to use the last 180 days. So we'll sum them using a formula.
Ladies and gentlemen, here comes the general. The moment you've been waiting for.
To calculate the escrow, all you do is multiply the chargeback percentage by the total tips in that date range. Realistically, I think that's a bit high. Something easier you could do is use a max formula to find the max tip in that date range and just consider that like a worst case scenario. And what I would personally do after all of this analysis is just make it an even 200. It's right in the middle of a conservative and a more less aggressive approach. And honestly, I wouldn't even go back to this unless I was ever hit with a chargeback that was greater than 200 and caused me to go into the negative. As I get hit with smaller chargebacks, I would always replenish it up to the 200 and always leave that minimum balance in there. Obviously, to make this click with DSP, I'm going to explain it a little different. DSP, you leave $200 polls in your PayPal account at all times, and all of the chargeback fees that you get charged that you're going to get saved on will be able to buy you even more polls than the original two.
Aw, $20. I wanted a peanut. $20 can buy many peanuts. Explain how. Money can be exchanged for goods and services. Woohoo! Go up!
And just in case you're listening, I only have to state this because you're a man-child, but you'll have to do these own calculations based on your tips. This is just an example, so it might be more or less than 2. If this video interested you, please like and subscribe and comment down below which one of Phil's problems should I solve next. Also, out of the bottom of my heart, I just really want to thank everyone about how kind you were on that first video. I was kind of not the proudest of it and was just hoping to upload it to kind of, break the seal on the channel and get my voice out there. And I was hoping no one would watch it, but people did. And not only did they watch it and they had nice things to say, and that means the world to me. It really does. So I just wanted to thank everyone for that. P.S. Fourth place gets nothing. Deuces.